But you got two choices. You ain't got three, you got two. You either with God or you against God. It's just as simple as that. It ain't no I'm straddling the fist. You can't be halfway. Because God said you're lukewarm and I will spew you out of my mouth. So you can't be part here and part there. You got to be all the way or no way. All the way or no way. It said, the second outline, it said confronting authority, speaking the truth. And you know when you telling people the truth, they don't want to hear it. That's right. But you know what? We gotta do it anyway. That's right. We gotta tell them anyway. And if they get mad, so be it. Right. They know what they doing. They know what they doing. That they said the truth hurt. Okay, verse 11. It said, and I raised up your sons for prophets, and of your young men for Nazarites. Is it not even thus, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord? Verse 12. But ye gave the Nazarite wine to drink, and committed the prophet, saying, prophesy not. Now, you know the Nazarite, they supposed to be the righteous people. As a matter of fact, at that time, they was the only one. They supposed to been showing them, the Israelites, how, look, God brought us here. Because you know you had to always stay on the Israelites. They was always, long as somebody was riding on them, they were fine. But the moment they turned their back, they scattered. They went back to the things that they was doing, that God hated the most. They went back to it. And when he made them, they made that vow, the Nazarite, they had made this vow, that they wouldn't drink wine, and they would never cut their hair. That's right. They would never cut their hair. That was their vow to God. And the Israelites, they talked them into drinking wine. That's right. They talked them into doing stuff that they weren't supposed to do. And that don't make sense. They done made these people turn on their vows that they made to God. Yeah. Just because they didn't want to be righteous. You know, they were happy the way they was. Yeah. You know, I mean, we got plenty. I mean, we flourishing. Yeah. Everything is good. Yeah. So now here comes this prophet. Yeah. So now he want us to you know, stop doing what we doing. You know, but we doing real good. But that ain't the way, that ain't what God said. That is not what God said. It said, surely the Lord God will do nothing but reveal us his secret unto his servant, the prophet. It said, the lion has roared, who will not fear the Lord God has spoken, to who can be a prophecy. It said Amos began his prophecy assignment by announcing God's judgment against the Gentiles. He went to the Gentiles first. It said nation. It said of Moab, Amos 2:1. After first, the Israelites welcomed his word. As long as Amos was confronting foreign nation, Israel approved. They approved everything. It said, but their attitude shifted dreadfully when the prophet focus returned from the Gentile to the people of God themselves. Suddenly, the same message that once sounded righteous now felt offensive. See, it's made it to them now. Yeah. You know, he threw with the Philistine and the Moabite, you know, the Amorite. He threw with all of them. He had already passed judgment on them. So now he done made it back to his people. He finna pass the judgment on the Israelite, and he hit them the hardest because they had a covenant with God. Right. The Gentiles didn't. Right. They didn't have no covenant. They had received the covenant, but the Gentiles hadn't. Right. So they really messed up. Yeah. They really messed up. They were supposed to have been showing the Gentile people how to live for God, but they did worse than they did.
Yes, they did.
So he gonna hit them harder. It's like I said, the Bible said, those that know gonna get whooped with a lot of stripes. Those that don't know gonna get whooped with a few.
That's right.
But they still gonna get whooped, but not as bad as the one that's supposed to know God and supposed to be living for God.
That's right.
Those the one that's gonna get whooped the worst.
That's right.
It said, God dog, I'm going fast, I can't. Okay, let me skip down some. It said, Amos confronted the leaders of Israel with a message that exposed their transgression and called them to remember the covenant they had abandoned. Beginning with the northern kingdom, he identified three basic sins. It said they had abandoned, beginning with, oh shoot, I'm going back over to say. First, Amos condemned their injustice. The wealthy and the powerful, it said, manipulated the judicial system to exploit the poor. It said these who could not pay inflation debt was forced to, servitude and slavery. They sold them. It said instead of protecting the vulnerable, the court became tools of expression, oppression. Second, Amos exposed their immorality. Father and son were engaged in sexual sins with the same woman. If the woman was a temple prostitute, it said, invoked it in pagan worship, it said the offense was double. Combating sexual immorality and idolatry, it said ritual. It said third, Amos confronted their idolatry according to Deuteronomy. It said taking a dead garment and failing to return it by sundown violated God's law. Yet the wealthy not only kept these garments, but they also used them as bedding while participating in drunkenness ritual before pagan altars. I mean, they were just,
That's it.
they was messed up. I mean, they was doing everything. Everything that they could do, they was doing it.
That's right.
They was doing it. So, now the third outline. It said facing rejection, the cost of prophethood. Amos 7:10 and 15. Verse 10. Then, it said, then, what's that? Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against thee in the midst of the house of Israel. It said the land is not able to bear all his words. In other words, they didn't want to hear it because they know it was going against everything they were doing. It said, for thus Amos said to Jeroboam, still shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away in captivity out of their own land. Also, Amaziah said unto Amos, O thou seer, go flee thee away into the land of Judah, and there eat bread and prophesy there. In other words, they didn't want him there. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear what he was telling them. So cause this one came back now. It said, but prophesy not again any more at Bethel, for it is the king's chapel, and it is the king's court. Then answered Amos and said to Amaziah, said, I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was an herdsman and a gatherer of sycamore fruit. But the Lord took me as I followed the flock, And the Lord said upon me,
All right.
Go, prophesy unto thy people Israel.
All right.
Because he was warning them.
That's it.
He was warning them.
Yes,
It said, truth will always provoke resistance from untruth. From Genesis to Revelation, scriptures reveal a continual clash between light and darkness. It said righteousness and rebellion, God saved. It said, whenever the truth of God confront a heart hardened by sin, it said, or pride, it said, push back is unedible. This is not merely a possibility, it is a certainty. Amos experienced this reality firsthand, yet despite the hostility he faced it, he did not flinch, retreat, or delude. It said the message God entrusted to him. He didn't waver. He didn't stop. He did exactly what God had told him to do. And that's what we should do. When God tells you to do something, you need to find yourself doing it. You need to find yourself doing it. And if you don't do it, that ain't going to stop God. He's going to send somebody else in your place. He will send somebody else in your place. And when you see somebody walking around here looking all sad, maybe with their head down, don't give up on them.
That's right.
Don't give up on them. Because God will use that very person to send his message out to his people. Thank y'all for y'all listening.
Amen.